From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Hatteberg's People.
These stories are like old friends. Their lives radiate from the screen like prophets of the past. They were teachers, but not in a classroom. Instead, they taught about life to those around them who cared to listen, and I was their student.
Across America, it is a sad time for newspapers. The once proud publications that carried the day's news, the funnies, the stock report, and the obituaries are now writing their own.
Yet, in Reno County, Kansas, there is a resurrection. A 16-year-old and a local librarian started a newspaper online to compete with the former Pulitzer Prize-winning Hutchinson News. First, a bit of background. For the past few years, the Hutchinson News has become a zombie publication. The building is there, but its function is now to house printing presses that print the Wichita Eagle and the Hutchinson News. Walking up to the front door of the paper, there is this sign: the office is closed. On the Hutch News website, under staff listings, there is only white space. There are no reporters except for a local columnist, Dan Deming, and he's not listed as staff. It appears the Hutchinson News is actually housed 178 miles from Hutchinson in Topeka. Apparently, the Topeka Capital Journal newspaper controls what Hutchinson residents see in the Hutch News. Both are Gannett-owned newspapers, and as a result, the Hutch News is mostly regional stories from those area Gannett papers. No one at the Topeka Capital Journal would consent to an interview. However, Gannett Corporate did send me a one-sentence response. The Hutchinson News relies on the USA Today's network's expansive reach to ensure continued coverage in Reno County and across the greater state of Kansas. Translated, no local staff in Hutchinson. What 16-year-old Michael Glenn saw happening to the Hutchinson News moved him to action.
And just saw the lack of local content. The content in there was fine, but none of it was tied to Hutchinson or to Reno County even. There was no local news.
Yes, Michael Glenn was 16, now 17, and since he saw what happened to his local paper, he now owns one. Michael and Hutchinson librarian Gina Long are the co-owners of the Hutchinson Tribune, an online newspaper which they began in July of 2023.
He approached me and said, "Would you like to start a newspaper?" And I have this inability to say no, and didn't even think about it and immediately said yes.
Both of us just decided that, well, we can write. And so I picked up a reporter's notebook and I went to City Hall a couple weeks afterwards, and I just started taking notes. And I found that putting together an article isn't the most difficult thing to do in the world.
Metropolitan Coffee Shop is a frequent meeting place for the duo. Not being traditional, they put the paper together on computers while the coffee shop hums away.
It's not your grandfather's newspaper, definitely. I mean, obviously my age is quite a novelty, but the running joke within my friend group and even my teachers is that I act like I'm 40 years old. I mean, look at this sport coat.
You're not dealing with just your typical, what I would call a typical 16-year-old. You know, here's somebody who he's got the ability to take something and run with it and stick with it, which is something even my generation has difficulty doing.
Both Michael and Gina cover stories for the online paper along with a host of volunteers. Gina's beat of art and culture includes the Kansas State Fair.
Yeah, it gets to be a little tiring occasionally, but you know, it's good work.
So you've been in the barbecue business a fair bit.
There's a difference between exhaustion from just beating yourself against a rock and exhaustion from doing something that's going to benefit your community.
One of the people she featured here was Susie Bernard, owner of the longtime Hutchinson restaurant that is a state fair staple.
And I grew up with my parents' catering
You know, if somebody asked me 2 years ago if I'd be in the newspaper business, I'd laugh at them.
Meanwhile, you might find Michael covering a meeting for local legislative candidates.
The discussion tonight will start.
I think the main part of journalism that keeps me going, that really calls to me, is the fact that it helps hold our government accountable. We thought it was so important 250 years ago, newspapers were, that we put it in our founding document, the Constitution.
Nothing about this should work, but it does. The Tribune has a large number of subscribers and advertising that used to go to the Hutch News.
Yeah, I thought we'd do that after we get the editorial part out of the way.
I think it's awesome that people are taking us seriously and seeing us as valid community journalism.
Michael Glenn is now a senior at Trinity High School in Hutchinson and plans to major in journalism at the University of Missouri next fall. What happens to the paper when he leaves?
What I can say is that the Tribune will still exist, and it's going to keep getting better and growing, regardless of how involved I am.
We are invested in the community, and as long as I'm here, we know that ownership of the Tribune will stay in Hutchinson.
Meanwhile, the Hutchinson Tribune continues to attract readers. As two people with no newspaper experience said, sure, we can do it. And they did. This could be a model for other small communities in news deserts to try.
But it's something that is growing, and we're very proud to be a part of it.
I have to tell you, this is one of the most interesting stories I've covered recently, because think about what you were doing when you were 16-year-old. You think about starting a newspaper?
Exactly.
No. Well, he did. This young man in Hutchinson, Kansas is incredible at every level. And the librarian who works with him and is also the co-publisher, they're doing great things over in Hutchinson, and people notice, and they have all of these subscriptions, and it's just a different world now.
And they sell ads, and like you say, they found a need, a local source of news, and they're providing that need. Hopefully it'll be a tremendous success. We need journalism like that still out there.
Yeah, we need newspapers, we need television too, but we need newspapers.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the fabric of a community, and they're providing that in Hutchinson. So the folks in Hutchinson, you're lucky.
Absolutely. For many drivers along K96 north of Wichita, it is a familiar sight. A lone tree standing tall and conspicuous against the vast Kansas sky.
And for Elsie Macklin, the tree was more than just a landmark. It was a source of solace, a muse, and a subject of years of artistic exploration. Where others pass, it took a stand, this old cottonwood tree, reaching to the heavens, silent, strong, unwavering. This old tree has had a lot to say. Elsie Macklin listens.
And it looks to me like, since I was here last time, lightning's hit and it's got a lightning scar there.
Elsie has been photographing this old tree for years. Her work is with the Hutchinson Police Department, but her artistic outlet is photography. This tree north of Mays on K96 has been one of her favorite subjects.
During the desert storm, I saw yellow ribbons decorating this tree. I've seen a marriage proposal on it, which I thought was pretty neat.
In her photography, Elsie combines her love of nature with still lifes and human interest shots that are warm and genuine. But her photography is also her escape.
It's a pressure valve from a job that I had, which is rather stressful. And it's a way for me to get away and forget about problems.
On the backs of many of her photographs, an extra bonus. She writes her feelings down when she took the picture.
I hate to go home sometimes when I'm doing something like this, you know. I forget I'm tired, I forget I'm hungry. And for me to forget I'm hungry is pretty good, because I like to eat, you know.
Many others also enjoy the majesty of this cottonwood tree. That's why Elsie calls it the honking tree.
There you go. Yep, see, we have got the honking tree. Part of my job is the fact that I have to work a lot of Sundays, and I have to look for my own way to worship, and this is part of it for me, you know, to get out there and to be able to appreciate something like this. You take pictures like that, you've got to believe that there's God who made something like this. I can't see how anybody can be an atheist when they see something like this.
Now that was 1996, and Elsie continued taking pictures for many more years. Now, she passed away in 2021 at age 83. Meanwhile, that tree still stands and is more famous than ever. It even now has its own Facebook page. I was pointing the tree, we were coming back from Hutchinson, and I was pointing the tree out to my wife, and I said, there's the famous tree as we went by it on K96.
Isn't that cool? We all notice it on our way to the state fair and stuff.
But Elsie loved it more than anybody.
And she has made it a legacy with her photographs.
That's right, and now everybody is aware of it on her Facebook page.
There you go.
Okay.
In the wake of tragic events of September 11th, 2001, a renewed sense of patriotism swept across the nation.
Now in Wichita, Korean War veteran Delbert Spar and his wife LaWanda became beacons of that spirit. They made it their mission to instill love of country in the hearts of young people and to show unwavering support for those who serve.
That's a sharp-looking picture of you, huh?
That's one of those slim and trim.
Yeah.
No belly.
There's a lot to remember for Korean War veteran Del Spar. Some good, some bad.
Well, you know, most of us don't like to talk about the service, that branch you've been in, because it's bring back too many bad memories.
He and his wife LaWanda are members of the American Legion Post 401 in South Wichita.
I'm so sorry that it happened, that September the 11th happened, but I do think it is waking up the schools and the kids and everybody back to the point to where we need to show more patriotism.
And would it be all right with you if we pass them out to your students?
Every day, in some small way, he and his wife LaWanda personalize the ideals of the Legion.
There you go. Thumbs up again, bud.
The Spars receive thumbs up from their friends, too, because they spend hours beautifying the yard around their Legion post.
We started this about 6 years ago, and there wasn't nothing but the fence and the air conditioning out here.
We just can't seem to get anybody else interested in wanting to help because it is hard work.
But the physical work may be easier than trying to change the Legion's image, that of simply a drinking establishment.
Back in the olden days, I guess that's what it was known as, and we're trying to change the image of it.
People need to know what's there, that it's a nice, safe place.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Today, the emphasis of the American Legion is to help sponsor child and youth programs. That's why visiting Tammy Decker's classroom is so inspiring to these older warriors.
And justice for all. The little girl came up and said, here, and she gave this for me to take home, and I told her I'd put it in my scrapbook.
The Spars believe that the work by the Legion involving young people is the future of their organization.
I thought it was great.
Meanwhile, a Veterans Day parade on LaWanda's mind as part of a float takes shape in her living room.
Yeah, I enjoy it. You just always hope it's going to turn out to look like something instead of a big mess when you get it all put together.
Their patriotic involvement in Legion work and their love of country is embodied in everything they do. But it is perhaps these moments where they see the country's future, and that means the most.
Make chills run up and down your back.
After 9/11, there were so many people who just wanted to spread patriotism. So many of these things popped up here and there and all across the country, and it was so wonderful to see. So we thank Delbert and LaWanda for for doing that here.
That's right, and it was a fascinating story to cover back then. And Delbert and LaWanda, now they both passed away in the past few years. Their American Legion post burned down in 2016, and that really was the end of it. It was never rebuilt. You know, that's the way life is.
I know.
You know?
I hate it that life's that way, though, Larry.
I know. I'm not excited about that either, but we have to put up with it because that's the way it is. But the good that they did while they were alive, we need to celebrate.
And guess what? We're celebrating it by keeping it memorialized in Hatteberg's people. And we appreciate that, too. We do. We do.
Thank you, Susie.
For many years in the heart of downtown Wichita, amidst the gleaming towers of modern commerce, sat a relic of a bygone era.
Yes, Sam Lundstra's hardware store was a haven for forgotten treasures and a testament to a simpler time. Rather than a place to buy the latest power tool, the store was a capsule of hardware history. In 1991, I explored the eccentric world of Sam Lundstra and his unique approach to retail.
We have a mom and pop store, but mom's kind of under the weather, so we got a pop store anymore.
Take a good look around. This old hardware store is like a history book, and you've been by it 1,000 times.
Only this morning, my son, we were looking at the stock page, and he said, "Dad, why don't you get out of that hardware store and get you a computer and do what you're doing this morning?" And I said, "Oh, no. You know, if I got out of there, Larry Hatteberg wouldn't been here today."
Well, I did come by because everything in this store isn't in a fancy wrapper, isn't where I can find it, and isn't neat and tidy. But if I need a bolt,
2 inches long, let's go get it.
Sam Lundstro can find it.
Now, how many do you need, sir?
One nut, one washer.
Okay. And we got the washers up there a little ways further. Here's your bolt. You want some pecans? About how many pecans would you like to have? A pound or 5 pounds?
He's got the bolts and he's got the nuts, and in this little old hardware store, he's probably got stuff you don't even know you need.
But we have a unique item over here, and it's probably the most valuable antique we have in our store.
Amidst the clutter and the fact that he admits this old store is not a moneymaker, he says he keeps it open because he likes to talk to people. So I asked him what others would say about him. He said I'd have to ask them, so I did.
Well, he's kind of unusual, kind of a weirdo.
Thanks
He
a lot.
got all this money. He don't need any all this.
Thanks a
He
lot.
could sit back and really enjoy himself. But he'd like to get out here and keep him busy.
He takes a lot of kidding from his friends, but there's one thing he doesn't kid about, and that's his family. And if you're around Sam very long, you'll hear about his 3 sons and his wife of over 4 decades.
Well, darling, good morning. Oh, come on, dear. I think the reason I stay here probably is because of the association with the people. It really is.
That's not a surprise, and neither is this.
That we hardly ever throw anything away. We just kind of lay it back, and there's so many items that can be used at a later date. So we have a hard time throwing stuff away.
Sam and his wife Helen ran that hardware store for over 50 years. Well, they're both all gone, and so is that old store. And it's like we said in the previous story.
I know.
You know, time marches on, and the legacy that they had then was wonderful. And the wonderful thing about it is we remember it in our minds and can celebrate it here. Because that's just the way life is.
I hate it that
I know.
life is that way, that
Life
the
goes
only
on.
thing about life that we're sure about is that it'll change.
That's right.
And that's why things like Hatteberg, and I'll repeat myself, sorry. That's why things like Hatteberg's people are so important and wonderful and meaningful. So
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to put you on my payroll.
There
here.
you go. Okay, the year was 1996. The place, Buckland, Kansas. The person, Shirley Stimpert, a.k.a. the Pickle Queen.
Yeah, Shirley's company was known nationwide for its, as she said, pickles.
I always feel like that we live in the land of the big sky, because the skies are the prettiest thing about western Kansas. We're going to start on those beets after dinner. I want to get those cooking.
Smack in the middle of western Kansas, Shirley Stempert is turning the lowly pickle into profit.
We opened the door with $22,000 worth of orders and a panic-stricken pickler.
But now she has become the undisputed pickle queen not only of Kansas, but of the nation.
And now we've got like 25 employees. We're selling in every state in the union. I do most every gourmet chain in the nation. There aren't very many I don't do.
Near Buckland, Kansas, down an old dirt road, you'll find Shirley and Barry Stempert's place. It's the one where all the construction is.
Is that pretty good quality paint, Mick?
It all started in 1992 when Shirley, a freelance writer, and Barry, a college-level chemistry teacher, took some of their pickles to the local farmer's market. They sold out. It was then they turned the family farm into a little company called the Pickle Cottage.
We worked 23 out of 24 hours some days in 130-degree heat because I couldn't afford air conditioning in the cannery at that time.
Well, that's all changed now. They're enlarging their facilities with production expected to be over 3,000 jars of pickled vegetables daily.
Look at this one, striped one. Isn't that cute? My job description, I'm a custom designer of pickles. These big buyers will call up and they'll say, Shirley, can you? And of course, yeah, I'll give you 24 hours. And a new pickle's born.
So as you watch the pickles being packed and the jars being labeled, you may think these are just jars of pickles. Wrong, Pickle Breath.
Look at this peck of peppers. Isn't this pretty? We have red, yellow, and green bell pepper strips with fresh garlic and fresh dill. I mean, that's a work of art. The color, the form, the shape. The markets are unlimited. I had $3.5 million worth of orders the last 6 months of last year. And I turned down more than I packed because I couldn't possibly pack that many.
Semi-trailer trucks make their daily runs to the Stempert farm, and mason jars full of art and pickled vegetables wait for worldwide shipment.
We've worked with Linda Gray of Dallas fame. We've done parties for Winona Judd and Dolly Parton. We've had pickles sent to Boris Yeltsin and the governor's mansion, the White House. How are you feeling? You doing good? Good. That's great. Well, are you about to get done with the asparagus?
As the lowly pickle becomes poetry in a jar, Shirley Stempert is enjoying the moment.
I think that I'm blessed of God that He's given me an opportunity to do this. And when I said I am putting poetry in a jar, I really believe it's the same creative ability that creates a writer, an artist, a musician, or a pickle packer. But I love being the pickle queen. I think it's fun. It's a ball.
In 2004, Shirley and Barry decided to retire and close down the business. In 2019 and 2020, they both died unexpectedly within 7 months of each other. In order to keep the family farm, their son Trent, with his wife and daughters, reopened the Pickle Cottage in 2021 using all of Shirley's great recipes. Now, you can buy their pickles at farmers market, home and AG shows, and online. You know, as we say, people don't last forever. None of us are going to last forever.
None of us are.
But the next generation has now taken over.
Carrying it on.
Carrying it on. Congratulations, guys.
I go to the farmer's market at the Sedgwick County Extension on 21st and Ridge, and I see those pickles there.
Yeah, there
now
you go.
I know who they are.
That's right.
Buying the pickles next
Load
time.
up on them.
Over the years, car dealerships have become synonymous with bold promotions. They constantly come up with new ways to lure in customers.
Yeah, Stan Withers understood the power of promotion and developed his own unique approach to help him stand out from the crowd. And in doing so, he was also pursuing a rewarding hobby.
Try to satisfy everybody.
Just another Chrysler dealership on the Kansas prairie. You got those new cars coming off the truck. You got your new cars parked on the lot. You got your helicopters. Helicopters? Hello.
A lot of people talking about them.
Well, there should be. On 54 Highway on the east edge of Pratt, these little babies are a showstopper. Stanley Withers should know. He bought them.
Always wanted to go up and be a test pilot. Well, that didn't happen, so here I am doing this. Just all kinds of stuff left in it.
This is 11 Sikorsky H-3 helicopters, all purchased by Withers and currently setting at his Pratt dealership. He loves cars, but he loves airplanes even more. He finds them, buys them, and hopefully sells them.
I just like aircraft. And whatever we can do to keep them going. I hate to see any of them get destroyed, junked out.
But all of them need refurbishing.
Suppose you think this looks like a project. All the wires stay exposed. I mean, it flies pretty much like you see it. The big part's missing. Transmission, motor, and rotors. But it can be added. I don't see a whole lot of difference between this and trying to rebuild a car myself. It just bolts in and plugs in. I've got about 15,000 in this one, as it sets. You'd have $500,000 in it time you're all said and done.
And Withers has a buyer for these, he thinks. All he wants to do is see them flying once again.
Everybody's got a hobby. And I guess this is my hobby. I think it looks kind of neat.
Over at the Pratt airport sets an F4. See, Withers and a few others brought it to Pratt for display. That's what he does too. He moves airplanes from one place to another. But it's here at his dealership that the Sikorskys really get people talking.
I mean, it's the only advertisement in the world that you can get, and you can still sell it when it's done.
Now, some folks may think these helicopter shells are ugly. Well, maybe, maybe not. Withers, you see, is a businessman, and he knows the power of ugly.
They are kind of ugly, but they're interesting. Got you here.
Well, Stan passed away in 2003. His daughter Pam says those helicopters were sold off at some point, and the Chrysler dealership closed down. But you know, that's so interesting. He was a very creative guy. You know, you put the helicopters out there, people are going to stop.
They're going to stop.
And then by magic, there's a car dealership
There's a
right
car
there.
dealership.
So,
that is so cool.
isn't that great?
And it's magic that you found it. What?
Well,
I mean, what, were you driving down the street in Pratt and go, oh, there's some helicopters?
that's exactly what happened. Exactly.
I bet.
I mean, wouldn't you stop?
Exactly. Oh, it's time for us to stop now.
I know.
So that is all for this week. Send us an email, though, and say something nice. We love to hear from you. Hatteberg's People, kpts.org is the address. Until next time, I'm Susan Peters.
And I'm Larry Hatteberg. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.